Hello and welcome. Tonight, Nigerian students say they are stranded in Sudan, while the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission accuses Egyptian authorities of frustrating efforts of about 7,000 nationals who are trying to get out of Sudan through the Egyptian border. Governors Nyesom Wike of Rivers and Seyi Makinde of Oyo converse support for President-elect Bola Tinubu, saying elections are over and it's time to face governance. People's Democratic Party asked the international community to impose travel ban on President Muhammadu Buhari after May the 29th, while Labour Party says it won the presidential election as both parties react to the president's comment on why the opposition lost the 2023 presidential election.
On business news tonight, Chairman of Geregu Power, Femi Otedola, sells his entire stake in Transcorp to fellow businessman Tony Elumelu 2 weeks after acquiring its shares.
In the world of sports, NFF disciplinary committee set aside 3 points and 3 goals deductions imposed on Remo Stars and Wiki Tourist.
And from Abuja, Nigeria Labour Congress asks the incoming administration of Senator Bola Tinubu to prioritize crude oil refining over what is described as an endless debate on fuel subsidy removal.
And in international news from London, Russia has launched a wave of airstrikes against cities across Ukraine, including Kyiv, leaving at least 17 people dead.
We begin from Sudan, where there appears to be no respite yet for Nigerian students who are trapped in the fighting between the warring factions. Now, the students claim the government is not matching its words with action as far as evacuation plans are concerned. One of them, who spoke to Channels Television, says only 13 buses have been made available so far for the evacuation. Olanio Oladura, who is the General Secretary, Nigerian Students, International University of Africa in Sudan, claims the Nigerian embassy executives in that country are jeopardizing the safety of the students by allegedly ordering for less buses than the initially agreed number of 40.
Every day they are telling us the buses are coming and will be under the sun from 6 o'clock up to 3 o'clock. There's another update today about the evacuation. Like one of the students spoke with the DJ of the NEMA in Nigeria. They explained the situation, how the embassy executive here are putting their own interest on the money that's supposed to be used to evacuate us from Sudan. All the money that has been sent to Sudan, $400,000, are all wasted. Some they packed some to their pockets, and some was like they paid some. Actually, how it happened is that the Nigerians sent $400,000 to them. So instead of using the $400,000 as a down payment, we were told now that they use the $400,000 to only request for 13 buses right now. So they are now expecting the remaining $800,000 to go and request for the other buses. Whereby the $400,000 is supposed to use as down payment for all the 40 buses that are supposed to pick us day before yesterday. Now the DJ now and some students here, they said they should stop sending money to them by the embassy. That the money should be transferred to the students so that we ourselves can look for buses to evacuate us from here. Actually, total of us are like 2,000 and something, but at least presently at my place, International University of Africa, we are 900. There is another university there, Arazi. There are almost 500 there, or maybe 600.
Meanwhile, officials of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, have been reacting to the viral video of students who claim to be trapped in deserts on their way out of Sudan. The Special Assistant to the Director General of NEMA, Mr. Idris Mohammed, dismissed the students' claims, saying the buses on which the students were traveling are all in transit to Egypt.
From our embassy in Sudan, is that 3,600 students have been profiled for evacuation through Egypt. And out of this 3,600, like I said, a lot of them are already inside buses. Some are by the border, some are still in transit. We are in constant communication with the Sudanese embassy. And profiling is a continuous process, of course. There are several students in educational institutions in several locations in Sudan. So it's a very complex situation, but as the information we get from Sudan, we keep feeding this information to the national EOC and keep on updating our records. But for now, we are working with 3,600 Nigerians. I'm in communication with the Nigeria embassy. There is nothing like buses have stopped in the middle of the desert because they have not been paid. There's no report like that. Along the line, if a convoy of buses is driving, something might have made them to make a stopover. But then, yesterday in the night, we received clearance that this is the same buses that we are saying that are already in the border area now. So if they are stuck, they couldn't have been in the border area between Sudan and Egypt.
Well, staying with the evacuation in Sudan, in the meantime, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, Mrs. Abike Dabiri Erewa, is calling on all those concerned with passages and movement of persons and services along contiguous borders of Sudan to create a humane condition for about 7,000 nationals, including Nigerians, to have unfettered access to their various destinations. In a statement, the NIDCOM boss says over 7,000 nationals, including Nigerians, are not being allowed to cross the border into Egypt since their arrival late Thursday. According to her, the Nigerian mission in Egypt has been working tirelessly on this as the Egyptian authorities are insisting on visas by fellow Africans to transit back to their countries. Mrs. Dabiri Erewa is therefore appealing to the Egyptian authorities to kindly allow the already traumatized travelers to transit to their final destinations in various countries in Africa. Ahead of the inauguration of the administration of Senator Bola Tinubu as the next president of Nigeria, the governor of Rivers State, Mr. Nyesom Wike, is asking Nigerians to rally around the president-elect. Addressing journalists shortly after meeting with the president-elect at the Defense House in Abuja, Mr. Wike says politics is over and it is now time for Nigerians to support the incoming administration. The Rivers State governor was accompanied by Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, who also stressed the need for Nigerians to cooperate with the president-elect in order to ensure the development of Nigeria.
Elections have come and gone. The winner has emerged, and therefore it is necessary for all Nigerians to rally around to give you the necessary support for the interests of Nigeria. And everybody is expecting, everyone can wait till May 29th to see that the president has been inaugurated, and then from there he kick the ground rolling to make sure that Nigerians get what they expect. I'm confident that he has what it takes to turn Nigeria around. I have that confidence.
I came here to basically pay homage to the president-elect and to let him know that, elections are over. This is governance, and we will do our best, to give him support for good governance of Nigeria.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari today received the president-elect Bola Tinubu at the State House. Now, the outgoing and incoming leaders who met for the first time in the last 1 month was ushered by the president towards the presidential mosque for the Jumat prayers. The chief imam of the State House Mosque, Ustad Abdul Wahid Suleiman, led the 2 rakat units of prayers. Also at the prayers were House Majority Leader Al-Hassan Ado Doguwa, Attorney General and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami, the National Security Advisor Major General Babagana Mongono, retired, and the Director General, National Intelligence Agency, Ambassador Ahmed Rufai Abubakar, among other senior government officials. After the prayers, the president-elect departed the presidential villa without speaking to the media.
As a tradition, we have a father who, by the special grace of God, came about this All Progressives Congress in the person of President Muhammadu Buhari, the leader of our party. So it is our tradition to present our candidates to our father and our president. So that is exactly what I came to do today. I have presented our candidate, Alhaji Usman Ododo, to our president, President Muhammadu Buhari, and he has given his blessings and admonition to him, myself, and as usual, to all Nigerians, to remain steadfast, be a party man, to continue to serve our people to the best of our ability. Kogi State is not known for Agberu kind of leadership. Kogi State is known for an inclusive leadership and a leader that will give way and allow the younger ones to come on board. He's a young man, far younger than me, and by the special grace of God, all the young people and women, and even the elderly in the society will be carried along in the next administration as much as I have done.
Nigeria's main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, is calling on the international community to sanction President Muhammadu Buhari, including placing him and his family on a visa ban after he exits office next month. Now, the spokesperson for the PDP, Mr. Debo Olugunagba, made the call at a news conference in Abuja while reacting to a recent comment about the 2023 elections, which was attributed to President Buhari.
The February 25, 2023 presidential election has been adjudged across the nation and globally as the worst in the history of our country. The presidential election was marred by a brazen violation of the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, the Electoral Act 2022, INEC regulations and guidelines, manipulation of processes, alteration of genuine results from polling units, announcement of fabricated figures, and climax by the vexatious declaration of the defeated candidate of the All Progressive Congress, APC, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as winner. Nigerians and the international community are therefore appalled, horrified, and scandalized by the careless, unguarded, and subjudice comment by President Buhari, in which he attempted to justify the rigging of the February 25, 2023 presidential election. Having clearly undermined democracy in Nigeria, the PDP calls on the international community to accordingly impose sanctions, including visa ban and travel restrictions on President Buhari and his family immediately he vacates office on May 29, 2023. The PDP also demand an open investigation into the roles played by President Buhari in undermining of democracy in Nigeria in the 2019 election and the 2023 presidential elections.
In part two after the break, commuters plying the Lagos-Ibadan expressway continue to lament the long hours spent in traffic on the road. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, live from Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. Nigerian students say they are stranded in Sudan, while the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission accuses Egyptian authorities of frustrating efforts of about 7,000 nationals who are trying to get out of Sudan through the Egyptian border. Governors Nyesom Wike of Rivers and Seyi Makinde of Oyo canvass support for President-elect Bola Tinubu, saying elections are over and it's time to face governance. People's Democratic Party asked the international community to impose travel ban on President Buhari after May the 29th, while Labour Party says it won the presidential election as both parties react to the president's comment, and while the opposition lost the 2023 presidential poll. And Russia launches a wave of airstrikes against cities across Ukraine, including Kiev, leaving at least 25 people dead. To Talking Politics, and the Labour Party says it is very worried with the statement from the office of the president, where he was quoted as saying the opposition parties lost the 2023 presidential election because of their overconfidence, complacency, and even bad tactical moves, and which he claimed created more problems for them. The party, in a statement by its acting National Publicity Secretary, Obiora Ifo, explains that President Muhammadu Buhari's position on the outcome of the said election was not a true reflection of what played out during the exercise. In his words, the 2023 general election is the worst ever, as reported by virtually all the international observers and communities. In fact, the election took Nigeria back to the days of First and Second Republics, where political thugs, violence and thuggery characterized politics and elections. The statement adds that there are several reasons why the opposition political parties lost the 2023 election. According to him, the first is that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, snubbed the Electoral Act, wherein it failed to upload the result from the polling unit in real time as promised and in disregard to the laws guiding the election. He also claimed that the President-elect Bola Tinubu did not win the election because the said election, particularly the presidential poll, was manipulated. The Lagos-Ibadan expressway traffic continues today, leaving motorists and commuters stuck on the highway. The gridlock stretches all the way to the old toll gate, affecting those coming from Ikorodu Road, the third mainland bridge, and the secretariat in Alausa, Ikeja. The construction company handling the rehabilitation of the Lagos-Ibadan expressway project has again narrowed the outbound of the highway from the Kara section down to the exit point inbound Lagos State. Some motorists in the traffic appeal to the federal government to complete the project as soon as possible and ease the pain people go through on a daily basis.
Over 2 hours now, I've been on the road, and I'm coming from Bowe. I'm going to Maryland. That's where my office is. The interesting thing about this road is that they keep raising our hopes. They keep promising on completing the project. Before it was 1 year or the other. You know, in fact, I've been on this axis now like 6 years, and they keep promising next year, and then it shifted from yearly to monthly now. You know, from either they said they were going to complete it end of last year, then later they said no, first quarter of this year, maybe January, February, and now they are saying April. Today is April, what again? Today is 28. Today is 28. So I want to see the magic they are going to do within 2 days, because this month is terminating in 2 days' time.
What they are doing now is just like they are doing everything together, and they are making life so difficult. Yesterday I spent almost 4 hours inside the traffic. How long did I take to walk? Out of the 8 hours, I spent 4 hours inside the traffic. So I think they should do something. It's really affecting our health and every other thing.
It's that time again where we head to the nation's capital, and Victor Matthias is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Great to have you, Victor. Over to you.
Absolutely, Ayatunde. Great to see you as well, and welcome to the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress is asking the incoming administration of Senator Bola Tinubu to prioritize crude oil refining over what it describes as an endless debate on fuel subsidy removal. General Secretary of the NLC, Mr. Emmanuel Ugboaja, stated this at a press workers' day lecture jointly hosted by the Trade Union Congress and the NLC in Abuja. Meanwhile, the guest lecturer at the event, Mr. Sam Amadi, is asking Nigerian workers to organize, form coalitions and build a Labour Party to enjoy workers' rights in the country.
It's less than 72 hours to the 2023 Workers' Day celebration on May 1, and members of the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC and the Trade Union Congress TUC are attending this lecture on workers' rights and socio-economic justice in Nigeria. The guest lecturer highlights the challenges faced by Nigerian workers, including poor wages, the lack of social security, and unsafe work environments. According to the guest lecturer, the workers must organize and build a Labour Party to enjoy those rights that accrue to them.
It's important that as workers we engage and build the Labour Party as a platform for us to enjoy more effective access to these rights. This is a time now for the workers of this country to unite, not just to ask for fair wages. Workers' rights range from political action. That means you need to be political.
On the sideline of the event, the General Secretary of the NLC, Mr. Emmanuel Ugbaja, states the position of the Workers' Union on the reversal of fuel subsidy removal.
If they feel that refining product is not a magic wand, that it can't happen overnight, why do they feel that placing unimaginable suffering on Nigerians should then be the magic wand that they have to offer? For us, it's not about removal of subsidy. Removal of subsidy will hurt the regular worker, it will hurt the working family, it will hurt the unemployed, it will hurt the majority of Nigerians. It cannot be a policy to be borne by a government that will say it was elected by the people. Clearly, the issue is to have a government that has the will to get us to refine, and not a government that feels that their willpower should only be in punishing the people. Will react. We are not going to lie down and be rolled over.
May Day, which is also called the International Workers' Day, is used to commemorate the struggles and gains made by workers and labor movements. In Nigeria, the day affords workers' unions the opportunity to make demands on their employers.
Now, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, has been clarifying comments she made after the National Executive Council meeting on Thursday, where she said subsidy would not be removed now. According to a statement from her spokesperson, Yunusa Abdullahi, the minister says the government has not suspended the removal of subsidy. The statement reads in part, quote, against the backdrop of the story in some media that the federal government has suspended the removal of petrol subsidy, the government has said that it has not suspended the removal, but has rather expanded the subsidy removal committee to include teams from the incoming administration and the state governors, end of quote. It goes on to say, Mrs. Ahmed stated that the 2023 budget and the Petroleum Industry Act have made the provision that government should exit fuel subsidy by June 2023, and there is no change in the overall policy direction regarding the petrol subsidy. Now, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, says Nigeria's energy transition plan is the most creative instrument to ensure the country diversifies its energy resources. The Vice President was speaking at the launch of a book, Understanding Natural Gas, a Nigerian Perspective, written by David Ige and Dakwa Akinoshun. He canvassed more support for various sectors of the economy to move to cleaner sources of energy like gas, which Nigeria has in abundance.
Even though underexploited, Nigeria has about 200 million cubic feet of gas reserves. And it is for this reason that key stakeholders in the sector, as well as the legal profession, are gathered here. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who is also the chairman of the Energy Transition Implementation Working Group, is asserting that Nigeria cannot be left behind in the global move to diversify energy resources.
How do we position ourselves from the vantage point of a nation with abundant energy resources, working assiduously to diversify its energy resources, develop domestic resources, enhance energy efficiency, and strengthen our infrastructure? Our nation, like others around the world, finds itself suddenly in a situation where we must navigate this challenging transition wisely and with our economic future in clear perspective.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, commends the authors for adding significantly to the body of knowledge of the gas sector in the country.
This book is said to be a compilation of many years of gas sector industry experience of both Seyi and his bosom friend. Is indeed an easy to read reference on the fundamentals of natural gas. including, of course, the commercial transactions and the agreements.
The authors are glad that the sacrifices made to put the book together are paying off.
The purpose of a book really is actually to galvanize enough knowledge within Nigeria and amongst Nigerians in different segments or different sectors for people to get enough understanding of natural gas so that we can collectively accelerate the development of gas in Nigeria.
A lot of people just hear about oil and gas, but nobody really, very few people understand what gas is. How can it be used? What are the places? How can I play a part in it? Everybody wants to do oil and gas, but the knowledge about it is very limited. So we just find ourselves looking from the outside to the inside, never really being able to participate.
Industry players in the gas sector hope the book can help Nigerians better understand the sector so as to take advantage of the many opportunities that abound.
Now, the Joint Equal Opportunities Group, JEOG, an initiative of the Joint Admission and Matriculations Board, has urged all public and private institutions to grant persons with disabilities the opportunity to study courses of their choice. The chairman of the Abuja chapter of the group, Professor Sonny Ododo, made the call during a press conference in Abuja.
Said to be, finally, they get a chance. Population D. Before 2017, these people living with disabilities would have found it very challenging to participate in the Joint Matriculation Board examination. That changed when the Joint Equal Opportunities Group idea was born to give equal opportunities to eligible persons with disabilities. This center, located in the Federal Capital Territory, is among the 11 others spread across the country, originally set up to cater for the blind. This year, the center has accommodated candidates from all disability communities.
This is a very important...
According to the chairman of the FCT Center, 2,600 candidates have been processed by the group since 2017, with over a third of that number admitted to higher institutions of their choice.
Last year, 139 candidates gained admission out of 364 candidates that sat for the exam. In testing these candidates, there is no favoritism. It is the same test instruments that are given to regular candidates that they also are examined on.
The candidates are provided with traditional braille slates and other writing materials, accommodation and transport fare to make the process easier.
The person that was reading the questions for us was very patient enough with us. He read the question twice and we enjoyed this reading because he wasn't rushing us. So that was how the exam went today.
They should also try to improve in aspect of admission, because according to the figures and the percentage they read, although it's very encouraging, but they have to do more.
JAMB has also approved a gradual migration to full computer-based test mode in 2024 for blind candidates, an exciting time for the blind and other disabled candidates who are getting their dreams for equal opportunities fulfilled. A total of 337 persons with disabilities sat for the 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examinations across the nation. Victoria Longjohn, Channels Television News.
Now, still ahead on the news at 10, Chairman of Geregu Power, Femi Otedola, sells his entire stake in Transcorp to fellow businessman Tony Elumelu 2 weeks after acquiring his shares. That's on Business News. Join us again.
Welcome back. Let's now bring you up to speed to the petroleum tanker explosion in Jos Plateau State, where the casualty figure in Thursday's incident has now risen to 13. Other property destroyed in the inferno include 28 shops, 8 motor vehicles, as well as 6 tricycles and 2 motorcycles. The Commissioner of Police, Plateau State Command, in company of security chiefs in the state, visited the scene of the accident to ascertain the level of damages caused by the tanker explosion.
When something like this happens, I don't see the need attacking the security agencies that have come to assist. I think every person should turn to be a social worker at this point and not attacking somebody. This Federal Road Safety vehicle that has been burnt, the driver of the vehicle and one of the staff also sustained an injury. This is not what we're all expected to do in this modern Nigeria. I think we should all be reasonable and think twice. What is the role of the Federal Road Safety Commission in the event of such a magnitude, an accident that has just taken place, where about 13 people were burnt beyond recognition, people were injured? They are coming to this very place is to assist, rescue people, take them to hospital. But instead, people resorted to attacking them. What do we get from all these kind of things? It is not good.
The president has flagged off the construction of a center of excellence for environmental restoration in Ogoni land, River State. President Muhammadu Buhari also laid the foundation for the Ogoni Power Project and a 100-bed specialist hospital in Wiakarakana local government area of the state.
Ogoni traditional rulers, opinion leaders, youths and women are gathered here in Wiakarakana local government area of River State for this historic flag-off of critical projects to assuage environmental degradation in Ogoni land. The projects include the Center of Excellence for Environmental Restoration, Ogoni Power Project, and the 100-bed specialist hospital. The projects, which are components of the Ogoni cleanup exercise, are part of the federal government's efforts to turn around the socio-economic life of the people of the community.
One of the findings of the environmental assessment of Ogoni land by the United Nations Environment Program is the fact that Ogoni residents, as well as others in the region, are daily exposed to contaminants of concern that could be carcinogenic in nature. And therefore, the establishment of an Ogoni specialist hospital will greatly assuage the incidence of emerging cancer cases and other morbidities in Ogoni land.
The actualization of the power project marks the beginning of the transformation of the socio-economic potentials of Ogoni land and increase agro-allied activities, hence returning Ogoni to its erstwhile status, the food basket of the Niger Delta.
Addressing the events virtually, President Muhammadu Buhari commends Ogoni people for supporting the cleanup of oil-impacted communities, which he flagged off in 2016. The president notes that the three projects affirms the commitment of the federal government in addressing environmental issues in Ogoni land.
Just recently, we approved contracts for the next phase of remediation of sites, medium-risk sites, the construction of the Center of Excellence for Environmental Restoration, the training of 5,000 Ogoni people in sustainable livelihood skills, and the engagement of the hundreds of Ogoni youth as environmental vanguards.
The Minister of Environment then flags off the projects on behalf of the President, just as Ogoni youths promised to provide the needed support to ensure the completion of the three critical projects.
For the benefit, especially of the Ogoni people, and indeed their neighbors and humanity. Congratulations.
Beyond the flag-off of these historic projects, Ogoni people can't wait to see tangible results from the ongoing cleanup exercise and the completion of the Central Water Project across Ogoni communities.
The International Organization for Migration, the IOM, says it will continue to provide an enabling environment for Nigerians traveling by regular migration, particularly women and children who are more vulnerable to traffickers. The Deputy Director General for Operations, IOM, Ugochi Daniels, disclosed this in an interview after the commissioning of a second IOM office in Benin City, the Edo State capital, to ease operations and issue health certificates to intending migrants. Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State commended the migration body for assisting in the fight against illegal migration, noting that Edo had been one of the worst affected by the scourge before his administration came on board in 2016.
For IOM, protection for all is important, but because we know that most of the protection cases are women and girls, we put in special effort to make sure that what is needed for their protection, they have access to. And then there's also what we do as IOM to look at what are the term we use is drivers, what makes people take the decision to try and migrate irregularly. And working with our partners, working with the government, working with communities, how we can make it such that even if they do choose to migrate, they do so regularly and not exposing themselves, particularly for women and girls where the risk is so high, and that they don't feel that the only option they have is to start on a very risky journey where they have to deal with exploitation, abuse, violence, and I'm sure we can all agree that we want to avoid that.
Under our Migration 2.0, as much as possible, we want to discourage, because it's very hazardous, and it's very, it's undignified, and the human rights of those who travel that way are not protected. So that's one, that's why we work closely with the IOM to, we work with the federal authorities and try and discourage young people from just, selling up, whatever, or falling prey to agents or traffickers and saying, let me pay the $3,000 or whatever they're asking for, and under the guise that they will take you wherever and give you a job in Europe without the proper documentation. We're working with we're trying to discourage, that sort of irregular migration, and also the activities of traffickers in communities. We have largely succeeded largely, but still some work to be done. We're concerned at this point because given what's going on globally and national with the economy and the economic pressure on families, it is not unlikely that we may begin to see some pressure and maybe some resurgence of this, of traffickers trying to get people out irregularly. So we are working with them to step up, the programming to prevent human irregular migration and human trafficking.
Our business news is up next with Anne Waldo.
Hello and welcome to Business News. Billionaire businessman Femi Otedola has sold off his entire 6.3% stake from publicly traded diversified indigenous conglomerate Transnational Corporation PLC Transcorp, chaired by fellow billionaire businessman Tony Elumelu. Sources at the conglomerate say the landmark deal reached between both parties was a brief but friendly one, as they both openly committed to collaborating to advance Transcorp's objectives. On April the 15th this year, Mr. Otedola acquired about 5.52% shares of Transcorp, earlier making him a majority shareholder of that company. Meanwhile, Mr. Elumelu has now become Transcorp's biggest shareholder after acquiring fresh 9.7 billion shares in separate deals recently. Credit by banks to the private sector rose by 1.6 trillion naira, and that's about 4% month on month to 43.06 trillion naira in the month of March. That's coming up from 41.5 trillion naira in February. According to CBN's money and credit statistics data, which was released today, credits on the private sector and the government resulted in a net domestic credit of 70.6 trillion naira during the period. And this represents a 0.56% month-on-month rise when you compare it to 70.2 trillion naira recorded in the month of February. But credit to the government fell by 3% month-on-month to 27.5 trillion naira in March 2023, against 28.4 trillion naira recorded in February. And let's check out statistics from the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. It shows that non-oil export stood at over $1.3 billion for the first quarter of this year. That represents an increase of 8.5% compared to figures released in the first quarter of this year. Addressing reporters in Abuja, the executive director of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, Ezra Yukusak, said that cocoa, beans, urea and cashew nuts are some of the products that top the list of products exported, with Brazil, China, Japan, India and the Netherlands as the leading export destinations. Let's head to Nigeria's stock market. It ended the last trading day in the month of April with further advance. Investors are already extending bargain hunting on some high-value stocks. Laddie Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, after gaining 76 billion naira yesterday, the local bourse sustains a positive close for the week amidst buying interest in sell-offs as bulls dominate proceedings today. Look at the all-share index there, 0.32%, no red this week, 52,403 points for the all-share index. Market cap still trying to get to that 29 trillion level, 28.5 trillion. Let's look at the activity chart now. We see it's this volume in the green there. I'm getting used to that 6,000 level for deals, but now we're below that, 5,573 deals. Value, 13.06 billion naira. That's what's traded today. Volume, 3.12 billion. And that's why we see the bulls dominating today. Now let's look at the gainers counter now. We see Sovereign Insurance topping that counter. That's up 10% to close today, 33 kobo. And we see Burger there, 7 naira 80 kobo. That's up 9.86%. Flip over to the losers counter now. We see it's QTEX topping that counter, but this one's been in the news. Transcore there, Transnational Corporation Nigeria PLC, it snapped the positive trend we've had with that billionaire tussle over Transcore. And today we got that news that Mr. Femi Otedola exited his 66% stake in Transcore PLC after reaching a deal with Mr. Tony Elumelu to exit the company. So the question is the rally over for the share price of Transcore PLC? We'll drill down on that tomorrow on Capital Market at 7 p.m. So today it's a negative market breadth. 24 stocks gained while 27 declined. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you, Anne.
Thanks for watching Business News Tonight. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Ayotunde. Have a wonderful weekend.
Well, thank you so much, Anne. Many foreigners are still stuck in Sudan despite the evacuation of thousands by numerous countries. More evacuations are underway via Port Sudan as fighting continues in Khartoum. Now, the conflict between the Sudanese army and paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, triggered a rush to extract foreign diplomats and citizens, and several countries have evacuated their nationals by air, while some have gone via Port Sudan. Here's Simon Puser with other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russia has launched a wave of airstrikes against cities across Ukraine, including Kyiv. At least 11 people, including a child, were killed in an attack that hit a block of flats in the central city of Uman. Meanwhile, the State Emergency Service of Ukraine released a video of emergency workers extinguishing a fire after a strike in Dnipro, where a woman and her 3-year-old daughter were killed. Explosions were also reported in the city of Kremenchuk in central Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the apartment block was among 10 residential buildings that were damaged in Uman. The former US Vice President Mike Pence has testified as part of a criminal investigation into alleged efforts by Donald Trump to overturn his defeat in the 2020 election. Mr. Pence sat for more than 7 hours before a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. He was issued with a subpoena to testify under oath earlier this year. The questioning by prosecutors took place behind closed doors. His appearance came just hours after an appeals court rejected a last-ditch bid by Mr. Trump's legal team to stop Mr. Pence from testifying. The BBC chairman Richard Sharp has resigned after an independent report found he breached rules for public appointments in relation to a loan for then Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
I have decided that it is right to prioritise the interest of the BBC.
Mr. Sharp said he had agreed to a request to stay on until the end of June to give the government time to find his successor. The country's public appointments watchdog has been investigating the way in which Mr. Sharp was selected by the government to chair the broadcaster in 2021.
I feel that this matter may well be a distraction from the corporation's good work were I to remain in post until the end of my term. I have, therefore, this morning, resigned as the BBC chair to the Secretary of State and to the board. It was proposed to me that I stay on as chair until the end of June while the process to appoint my successor is undertaken, and I will of course do that in the interests of the corporation's stability and continuity.
The Supreme Election Council is set to announce the final list of candidates for the presidential elections scheduled for May the 14th in Turkey. President Tayyip Erdogan faces the biggest test of his 20-year rule in May elections that will decide not only who leads Turkey, but how it is governed. The opposition picked as its presidential candidate Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, leader of the Republican People's Party, and formed an alliance aiming to appeal to voters from the left and right, as well as those with Islamist roots. The opposition promises to reverse many of the policies of Erdogan, who has championed religious piety, military-backed diplomacy and low interest rates. And the Stone of Destiny has left Edinburgh Castle for the first time in more than 25 years as it heads to London for the coronation of King Charles III. The stone, an ancient symbol of Scotland's monarchy, was seized by King Edward I of England in the late 13th century and taken to Westminster Abbey. It remained in England for 700 years and formed part of the coronation chair on which kings and queens were crowned. The stone was returned for permanent display in Scotland in 1996, but it was agreed it would return to Westminster Abbey for any future coronation ceremony. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. In the world of sports, the Disciplinary Committee of the Nigeria Football Federation has set aside 3 points and 3 goals deduction imposed on Remo Stars and Wiki Tories by the Interim Management Committee of the NPFL following appeals by the clubs. The MIC sanctioned both clubs earlier this month over allegations of assault on match officials in the games between Remo Stars versus Gombe United and the games between Wiki Tories and Bayelsa United. The disciplinary committee ruled that there were no established evidence of assault on match officials by the IMC in the appeals by both clubs, and have therefore set aside the order deducting 3 points and 3 goals from the accumulated points and goals by both teams. Away from our shores, Naples is warming up for celebrations earlier today ahead of the possible title win of Serie A, with residents and fans found curious ways to celebrate the long-awaited Scudetto. The runaway Serie A leaders could secure their first title since 1990. That's about 30 years on Sunday, if they beat Salernitana and second-place Lazio drop points against Inter Milan at the San Siro. Their clash with the club has moved to Sunday from Saturday for security reasons. If Napoli wins the title, the first celebrations will take place in the Maradona Stadium on Sunday, meaning additional police forces will be required and deployed in the city to maintain security. That does it for us here in the world of sports at this time. Thanks for watching. I am Kelly Egiga. It's back to Ayo, the rest of the news.
Many thanks, Kelly. And the main news again. Nigerian students have continued to lament their plight in Sudan as they await evacuation. Well, this is just as the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission NIDCOM is accusing Egyptian authorities of frustrating efforts of about 7,000 nationals, including Nigerians, who are trying to get out of Sudan through the Egyptian border. Also today, Governors Nyesom Wike of Rivers and Seyi Makinde of Oyo conveyed support for the President-elect Bola Tinubu, saying elections are now over and it's time to face governance. Both men, who are members of the PDP G5 governors, were speaking during a visit to the President-elect at the Defense House in Abuja. Well, the People's Democratic Party has asked the international community to impose a travel ban on President Buhari after May 29th, while the Labour Party claimed it won the presidential election, as both parties reacted to the president's comment on why the opposition lost this year's presidential poll. And that's the news at 10 tonight. We thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. Have a good night.